Yo, this is Jay from Straight Smoke Gaming, and in today's video, we're going to be talking about the man on the screen, Brock Bowers. We're going to have doing a career sim, as you can see, year one. So far, what we know from Bowers is he's an 82. He has a hidden development trait. Yeah, he's off to a really good start this year. I believe he's top 10 in receiving yards, not just for rookies, just in general. So Bowers is off to a really good start, first round pick by the Raiders. What we're going to do in this video is we're going to sim his entire career, take a look at his stats, how the team does if he ends up winning a Super Bowl. We did something like this for Jonathan Brooks, and Orbis did countless ones for people like Bo Nix, Drake May. I'll link them all down in the description. So if you're interested in that video, go ahead, check the description, go ahead and see what players we have. If we haven't did a player that you want to see, comment that down below. We'll go ahead and start working on that because these are kind of lengthy, as you can tell by this video. I apologize in advance. Bowers he played a long career. He would not retire. The more we get into it, you'll be able to see how long he does actually end up playing. So go ahead and sim to the end of the first year and see how they end up doing. So at the end of year one, he has the record of the team is 5-12. Not really a good year for the Raiders, but they have a lot of problems right now with their team. Let's go and take a look at how he does personally, though. He ends up having 86 receptions, 911 yards, and 4 touchdowns. So pretty good stats. He leads the team in receptions, yards, not so much touchdowns. That's really the only knock you have on him in year one is you would like more than 4 touchdowns, but hey, he's a rookie. He works on that. I'm impressed by the yards. I'm impressed by leading the team in yards and receptions. So overall, I'd say pretty good year for Bowers. He does not end up winning Rookie of the Year, so I did not show that. I wouldn't be surprised if he did, though, with numbers like that, though. Okay, so now we're in year two. As you can see, Bowers jumps up to an 85 overall. That is a 3 overall jump. You see that hidden development trait has switched now to a superstar development trait, which is good. That'll help him improve faster. We're also going to go ahead and take a look at the depth chart to see where he falls. I do think, obviously, he is going to be the best tight end by quite a bit. One thing I want to compare it to is the wide receivers, too. He is the best pass-catching threat on this team, as Jacoby Myers is only an 82. So that's good news. Hopefully that'll lead to better numbers for him. Here at the end of year two, they end up going 7-10. So still not a really good year for the Las Vegas Raiders. But just because the Raiders don't do good doesn't mean Bowers can't play good. So let's go ahead and take a look. As you can see there, they got a different quarterback that they used. But overall, Bowers ends up having 36 receptions, 353 yards, and 3 touchdowns. One thing I did want to note, he only had 9 games played. So, that's going to hurt his numbers. That's kind of an outlier season. I would say that's a pretty big drop-off from last year. But he also didn't play as many games as he did last year. So that's going to affect his stats. Overall, not too bad in the 9 games that he did play. There's not much you can do. It was a bad injury. In year 3, as you can see, even with the injury, he does go up to an 86. That is a +1 overall jump. He still has his superstar development trait, which is good. That'll help him gain higher overalls and hopefully produce more. And we're also going to go ahead and do the same thing we have in checking. I want to check the depth chart, and still by far the best tight end. But like I said, he's going to be the best tight end. I'm more worried about this receiver room trying to catch him. And he is by far the best receiver on this team, or I guess pass catching threat. He's 3 overalls better than Jacoby Myers. So that should mean a good season, I would think. But at the end of year 3, the Raiders they're still struggling. They go 5-12. We're going to go ahead and take a look at his stats here in a minute. But just because the Raiders isn't doing good doesn't mean Bowers can't do good. So let's go ahead and take a look at his numbers. And Bowers ends up having 70 receptions, 829 yards in the 9 touchdowns. That is awesome. I believe he was tied for the most amount of touchdowns on his team. But, this is kind of more so what I was looking for. Compared to year 1, I would take the less yards to mean I get more touchdown scores. So really good year for Bowers. I think this means positive things are ahead for Bowers in the future. Let's go ahead and sim to the year 4 and see how this improves. So here in year 4, as you can see, he's now up to a 90 overall. So that's a 4 overall jump. He also gets an X factor, which is really big because that means he will improve even quicker with overalls, and hopefully that will lead to more yards and touchdowns and all that on the field. As you can see, still by far the best tight end, but he is going into the season hurt. That's why he's not the number one guy. It's not a bad injury. He'll be back. And, I mean, he's now a 90 overall, and no one in the receiver room is even an 80 overall. So this should mean that Bowers goes on a stretch of some really good seasons coming up after he does finally hit his 90 overall mark, and there's really no one to compete with him for passes. So here at the end of year 4, they end up going 7-10. We do see slight improvement, but I mean, still 7-10 is not exactly good. But let's go ahead and take a look at how he does as a whole. Remember, he did miss one game. He ends up missing 2. He must have had another injury at some point. But 63 receptions, 714 yards, and 2 touchdowns. The 2 touchdowns hurt. You obviously want your 90 overall player to get in the end zone more than twice. But, I mean, hey, the yards are all right. The receptions are all right. Don't get me wrong. I think Bowers is going to be good, but I just feel like I don't know if he's going to be like a Travis Kelce type. Travis Kelce gets those 1,000 yards receiving seasons. So far, we have yet to see Bowers do that, so he's trending towards not hitting it. I would assume so because, I mean, in year 4, he's already up to a 90, and he hasn't even really hit that 900-yard mark except for year 1 when he was a rookie. So now here in year 5, as you can see, he goes up to a 91 overall. So we see a 1 overall jump from last year. Still has his X factor. That's good. And, I mean, I'm still going to assume that he is the main tight end and obviously the main reception or main person to, like, throw to in the receiver room as well. So, yeah, by far still the best tight end. They did draft someone, so that'll be something interesting to watch because going into year 5, I would imagine they picked up his 5th-year option. So, who knows, maybe Bowers won't be back next year. That's why they drafted another tight end. Let's go and take a look at the receiver room, though. They add Jalen Tolbert. Nothing too big in the receiving game to pull from Bowers' production. So, Bowers should theoretically have another really good season. He is 10 overalls better than the best receiver. So, but that does not translate to the Raiders having success as they go 7-10 once again. That seems like a theme that's like a normal overall that the Raiders like to strive for in this sim. I don't know why, but that just seems like that's what they mostly get. So now at the end of the year, he had 73 receptions, 835 yards, and 9 touchdowns. Once again, those 9 touchdowns are good. That 800 receiving yards is good, and the 73 receptions is also pretty good. I think he would thrive more if he had some more help. I think that would help pull a little bit from him. But, I mean, they're just not at a point in their career yet where they could do that. He led the team in receptions. He was tied in touchdowns. And as you can see, he was only 2 yards off from leading the team in yards. So Bowers is a pretty important piece to this offense through year 5. So I would imagine they're going to have to bring him back, which they do. They signed him to a 4-year contract. So Bowers will be a Raider for the next 4 years. Let's go ahead and take a look at what that means, though, for him. And now here in year 6, he goes up to a 93. So that is another 2 overall jump. That's good. We're seeing steady improvement. That's what we like to see. He still has his X factor, which should help him level up higher, get more higher overalls quicker. Still the number 1 tight end. No surprise there. Still really no one in the receiver room can compete with him. He's now, I think it's 12 or 11 overalls higher than the next highest receiver. So still a main point in this offense. Should produce good numbers, but the team is just not doing it. It's not clicking yet. They go 7-10 again. So obviously not good. You would like for that to change. You want to see steady improvement, not just like a stagnant stagnant record-wise. So at the end of year 6, he has 59 receptions, 599 yards, and 4 touchdowns. Kind of a drop-off from what we've seen from him. One thing I did want to note at this point in his season, in the career sim, is that Bowers tends to have a good year, followed up by a pretty mid-year, and then a good year, following it up by mid-year. So it just really seems like at this point in his career, he's really lacking some consistency, which, I mean, I don't know if I would like that as a Raiders fan. Based on what you've seen so far, I don't know if this was how it would actually go in real life, but that's just something that I'm noticing from seeing the simulations in Madden. I mean, he's not a consistent touchdown scorer. He has 9 one year, then he goes down to 2. Then he has 9 the next year, and now he's down to 4. So, I mean, that'll be something to watch for in Bowers' actual NFL career. Now here in year 7, he's up to a 94 overall. That's a +1 jump. Still has his X factor. I would imagine still the number 1 tight end. I mean, it's going to be hard to find another tight end at the same overall as him or better. But the main thing I'm worried about is that receiver room. And as you can see, I mean, outside of the Joe Burks, there's really no one else there to compete with him. He's still much higher overall than Joe. So at the end of the year, they end up going 8-9. So that's one win improvement. I mean, hey, we'll take it. You got to start somewhere. So maybe with the one more win, that'll inch them closer to playoffs, hopefully. And maybe that means Bowers has a better year. Maybe there's overall better play. And taking a look now at his stats, he ended up having 64 receptions, which leads the team. He finished second in receiving yards with 649 on the team and only 3 touchdowns. Obviously, you could live with the receptions and yards if it means more touchdown scores, but I'm going to say this is a bad season just because does not have 5 touchdowns, does not hit 70 receptions, and he does not have 700 receiving yards. So overall, pretty bad year for Bowers. Let's see how that affects his numbers. And here in year 8, as you can see, he does still go up to 1 overall, to up to a 95, but he does drop from his X factor to a star factor. So that is something that you're going to want to, or superstar factor, not star factor, sorry. That's something that we're going to keep an eye on. The overall doesn't really change much. It actually gets better, but we do see him drop in that. He's still very much the main tight end, still very much the main receiving weapon, as the best receiver in our room is an 82. But the main thing I want to note here is he gets some better quarterback play. I don't know how. I don't think this will happen like ever, but Mahomes signs with the Las Vegas Raiders, so maybe that means good things to come for the Raiders. And as you can see, first year on the team, they only go 8-9, but hey, maybe there's some maybe they gotta they need a year to play together, get better with each other. Maybe that's it. Maybe this means good things to come in Mahomes' first year, going 8-9. Let's go ahead and take a look at how Bowers does. I would hope that means better numbers, and it does. I mean, only 61 receptions, that's less than last year, but he has 725 yards and 5 touchdowns. So we do see an increase in yards over the past 2 years, and we see the increase in touchdowns over the past 2 years. We also see the receptions are kind of around the same. So I'm thinking after seeing that this will mean bright things to come for Bowers in the second half of his career, I guess, because we're going to be going into year 9 now. So, I'd say he's pretty much played through the most of his prime. He is getting up there in age. You got to think he's going to be playing now on his 9th year. So it'll be interesting to see how that affects his overall and to see what that means going forward stats-wise. So, like I said, with him getting older, he's now a 95, but that doesn't really change much. That's the same old as what he was, so there's no drop, which is good. Still has his X factor. Let's go ahead and see on the depth chart where he's at, and he's still very much the main tight end. But we do see a little bit of an upgraded receiving room. We have an 80, 82, and an 84, so that'll be interesting to see if that pulls away from Bowers' production at all. I don't really know if it will, because he is by far the best receiving threat, a 95, and then your next best is like an 84 or some 80s, low 80s. I do think I would like to see Bowers get a 1,000-yard season, especially with Mahomes. Let's go ahead and sim to the end and see if that happens, and it doesn't. But great news here is the Raiders do make playoffs. They end up losing in the wild card round, so that sucks. But hey, after 9 years, he finally sees his first taste of playoff action. That is a bright spot. Let's go ahead and see how the team does total. They end up winning 10, and they're going 10-7. I don't think that means they win the division, but hey, we'll take it. We got to start somewhere, right? So let's go ahead and see how Bowers does overall. 53 receptions, 615 yards, and 6 touchdowns. So not really the best year for Bowers. That's kind of a drop-off in everything from the year previous, except for touchdowns. But I did want to note, it does look like there are other people getting involved, so maybe that means why. Maybe that has something to do with it. But hey, realistically, if you're going to make playoffs, I don't really care about the drop-off in yards. Bowers, he's putting up pretty good seasons up to this point. If you're going to take less stats to mean you make playoffs, I think that's important. That's probably a good trade-off. Here in year 10, we see him go down to a 94, so that is a -1 overall drop-off. I'm guessing it's probably because of the stats. Not really the best year for Bowers, as that is one of his worst years in recent memory. He still has his X factor, so that's good. And then even as a 94, he's still by far 100% the best tight end. We're going to see what the receiver room does, and it's getting better. 85, 84, and an 81 as your 3 main receivers. So the receiver room is getting better. It's going to be interesting to see if that means Bowers is going to get less and less of a more role in the offense just because of his age and with these young up-and-coming receivers getting good. And, I mean, hey, as you can see there, they end up winning the Super Bowl. So Bowers does get a Super Bowl in his career in the 10th year. Or maybe it was just what they needed with Patrick Mahomes. Maybe this will mean some little bit more success until Mahomes retires. But, I mean, hey, if this does happen in real life, I imagine Raiders fans would love this, being able to take the Chiefs franchise quarterback. He comes over there and in his second year wins with the Las Vegas Raiders, wins the Super Bowl. Overall, the team ended up going 10-7, so pretty good stats there. Let's go ahead and see how Bowers individually does. And he ends up having 57 receptions, 709 yards. The 2 touchdowns hurt, but the yards are okay. The receptions are okay. You want more than 2 touchdowns, but overall, I mean, hey, it's all good. You traded that off to win a Super Bowl. That's pretty much what you need. I mean, that's one of the main deciding factors on if you make the Hall of Fame is if you have a Super Bowl. So, I mean, that's important to have a Super Bowl. Let's go ahead and see how that affects in year 11. So, in year 11, he goes back up to a 96 overall. So, that's a 2 overall jump. Still has his X factor. Still, by far, the tight end one. We will check here in a second, comparing it to the wide receiver room, because we do know that wide receiver room is young and only getting better the more farther we go into the season. So let's go ahead and take a look. And, I mean, we still have our 86 receiver, but there's really nothing after that. So maybe this means Bowers will get worked in a little bit more here in year 11. Maybe that'll mean a little bit more of a better season. So, as you can see, they end up making playoffs again. They make it all the way to the AFC Championship game and lose to the Ravens. Still a pretty good year. After the Super Bowl, going back to the AFC Championship game. Really good year for the Raiders as a whole team. They end up going 8-7. Not bad. Let's go ahead and take a look at the stats and see what Bowers was able to do for this team. And he does not really have that good of a year, as you'll see. 58 receptions, 699 yards, and only 2 touchdowns. Those 2 touchdowns hurt. I can live with 2 touchdowns if you're putting up in the 700 to 900 yard range. But when you don't even hit 700 yards, that's not a good look. I mean, obviously, you would want the 700 yards and multiple touchdowns. The 2 touchdowns hurt. This is kind of a trend that the past couple of years, he's been struggling to get into the end zone. In year 12, we do see he drops 4 overalls, down to a 92. Still has his X factor. Still, obviously, a tight end 1. 92 is a very good overall. We're going to go ahead and take a look at the receiving room and see if anything changed there, because we do know that they are starting to get better, and this is the closest we've had when it comes to a pass catcher about the same overall as Bowers. Davis is now up to an 89 overall, so that'll be something to monitor in the coming years to see if he kind of gets phased out of the offense more. And as you can see, the Raiders, they end up going 8-9. Not a really good year, especially after making the playoffs the past couple years. You would hope for a better season than that. Let's go ahead and take a look at how Bowers does, though. And Bowers actually has a really good year. This is the best year that he's had since his 5th year in the league. 74 receptions, 875 yards, and the 7 touchdowns. That's good. I mean, you'd want him to be a good red zone threat with the 7 touchdowns. That's good. Almost 900 receiving yards, almost 75 receptions. This is a good year for Bowers. It's kind of crazy to think about that this comes in year 12 compared to what he has did the past couple years. Like I was saying, this is the best seasons he's had since his 5th year in the NFL. So that's good to see. But sadly, that does not really change anything going into year 13. I do think the age is starting to catch up to him a little bit. As you see, he goes down to a 90 overall. So that's a 2 overall drop. He still has his X factor, though, so maybe that'll help him put up some more good seasons. Still very much the tight end. 190 is a very good overall to be as a tight end. But they have a wide receiver that is a higher overall now. So now he is by far, you could say, the second option. He isn't even the best receiving weapon overall-wise. But, I mean, hey, the Raiders make playoffs here in year 13. They end up making it all the way to the divisional round, lose to the Bengals. Still pretty good. I mean, making the playoffs. Hey, you always want to make playoffs, especially when a team like the Raiders that have been struggling to make playoffs. I'm sure a lot of Raiders fans would just take the playoff berth. The team ends up going 9-8. Let's go ahead and see how Bowers ends up doing as a personal stats. 66 receptions, 796 yards, and 7 touchdowns. Those 7 touchdowns is what I like to see. He is getting older, so, I mean, He's not getting the volume in receptions or yards as much, but the touchdowns, the red zone shots are exactly where you want to be at this point in your career. Here in year 14, as we see, the age is catching up to him. Now down to an 87 overall. That's a 3 overall drop from last year. Still has his X factor, so that's good to see. Still the tight end 1. 87 is still a very good overall. But like we've seen the previous year in year 13, the wide receiver room was starting to catch up to him a little bit. So let's go ahead and sim to the end of the year and see what that means for the Raiders as a team. They end up going 6-11, kind of a bad year for the Las Vegas Raiders this year. Let's go ahead and take a look at that. Translates it all to the stats for Brock Bowers. He ends up having 74 receptions, 770 yards, and 4 touchdowns. The receptions and yards are good. I can take that. The 4 touchdowns, that's a little bit weak. You would like to probably be more in the 7 range like you have the past 2 years. But hey, we do got to think about Bowers is a 13-year vet, 14-year vet. He's been around a while, so maybe that's going to contribute a little bit to his drop-off. So here in year 15, he comes back for a 15th year. He's now an 87. This is the biggest drop we've seen for him. Goes all the way down to a 80. That's 7 overall drop. He loses his superstar factor or X factor and goes straight to a star factor. So he's still very much good, still the best tight end on the team. Receiving room, though, I mean, you got your 91, and then you're kind of in the range of those other guys. So it'll be interesting to see how much Bowers does actually get used, as he is a little bit on the older side. Let's go and sim to the end of the year and see. And as you can see, the Raiders still make playoffs to make it all the way to the divisional round again, and they lose to the Bengals again. So overall, the team had a good year. I mean, playoff berth, divisional round, not bad. But I don't know if that's going to translate to the stats as we've seen before. They're 11-6. This is the best record they've had, even with Mahomes. That didn't translate to a Super Bowl. But when it comes to games won, they have not won this many games in his career at all. Let's go ahead and take a look at the stats. Only 24 receptions, 294 yards, and only 4 touchdowns. So Bowers, he's by far not the guy anymore. Even in the tight end room, as you go up there, this other tight end, more receptions, more yards, more touchdowns. If you go all the way over to the downs played, he was on the field less than this other auto-generated tight end that the Raiders ended up drafting. I also wanted to note he did not even have as many games played as well, as he had 4. Bowers had 4 more games played than this guy, but he was just getting outsnapped. I mean, age does seem to have caught up to him. And as you can see here, he's a free agent. He's a 70 overall. He's 36 years old. I didn't sim any farther because, I mean, there's multiple other tight ends that are higher overalls and younger than him. So, I mean, realistically, there's not much of a chance of Bowers getting on a team as a 70 overall, 36-year-old tight end. So that's pretty much the end for his career. Let's go ahead and take a look at some career stats. Feel free to pause if you wanted to look at this more in depth. I mean, the big thing that stands out to me is the over 10,000 receiving yards. That's one of the big things. 5 playoff appearances, 1 Super Bowl. Highest overall he got to was in the 96 overall. So overall, I'll say pretty solid career for Brock Bowers. Based on those numbers, I would say, yeah, he's a Hall of Famer. He got a Super Bowl. He hit 10,000 receiving yards, over 70 touchdowns. Pretty good year. Go and comment down below. Let me know what you guys think. Do you think Brock Bowers will be a Hall of Fame tight end? But when it comes to this video, that's all we got. So if you enjoyed, please remember to like and sub for more Madden content. We'll see you in the next video. Bye, guys.